Hello viewers, welcome back to Saharatv. My name is Kwesi Baako. In September of 2002, a civil conflict broke out in the Ivory Coast. Although most of the fighting ended by 2004, the country remained split in two, with a rebel-held north and a government-held south. The conflict somehow was settled with the ascension of Gbagbo to the highest office in the land. But the conflict escalated again, and on April 11, 2011, forces loyal to current President Alassane Ouattara stormed the presidential residence and arrested Gbagbo, who was subsequently turned into The Hague for prosecution. Gbagbo loyalists fled the country, with most of them taking refuge in neighboring Ghana. One of these, former Budget Minister Justin Katinan, has however been pursued by the government of the Ivory Coast, with a case filed in the Ghanaian court for his extradition. Mr. Katinan has, however, won the case to avoid being extradited back to the Ivory Coast, and he's now practically a free man. On the line right now from Accra to help us understand these issues and the consequent victory is counsel for Mr. Katinan, Mr. Patrick Sogbodjor. You're welcome to the show, Mr. Sogbodjor.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so let me start by asking you, can you give us a background to the case? Can you give us a short background to all the, the whole case?
Okay, I'll do that in as brief as I can. Sometime roughly about a year ago, my client, Mr. Katinan, was arrested at the airport, Kotoka International Airport. He was on arrival back to Accra from a flight from Johannesburg, South Africa. He was arrested. He was initially held by the security agencies, and the information then was that he was going to be extradited to the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire for some alleged offenses he had committed. At that point in time, we brought what we call a habeas corpus, which is to order whichever body is holding someone beyond the mandatory 48 hours to produce him before court. The state had to comply with that court order, and he was produced before court, remanded into custody, and at that point, the state then began formal extradition proceedings. Now, these formal extradition proceedings always start in the district court, because the district court is a court seized with the capacity to look into the issues, and after ascertaining whether or not certain conditions have been met, the district court will then commit you for extradition. So that was what we started doing about a year ago in the Osu District Court.
Fantastic. Has Mr. Katinan been charged before any other court at all, like say an international court at all?
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
Okay. Your client was also accused of, he was primarily accused of masterminding the looting of Ivorian banks.
Yes.
But you defended him by saying that it was politically motivated. Apart from the politically motivated argument, how did you go about, did you actually defend him also against that primary charge of, masterminding the looting of the banks?
Yes, we did. You see, in fact, the judge acquitted him for a number of reasons. The first reason was that the state had not produced sufficient evidence amounting to the accused, Mr. Katinan, having committed the offense. That was the first one. Then, secondly, the court also held that the reasons for his being sought to be extradited to Côte d'Ivoire were more or less politically inclined, and therefore on that basis he wouldn't extradite. Then also another reason that we had also canvassed right from the beginning was that there was no extradition treaty between the two sister countries, that is Ghana and Ivory Coast or Côte d'Ivoire, at the time the request for extradition was made and the arrest warrant was issued. There was no extradition order treaty between both countries at the time. Now, the judge agreed with us on those counts, and then also agreed with us also on the issue of his refugee status, because Ghana is a member of the United Nations, various treaties on refugees have been enacted, and various protocols are in place. In Ghana is obligated to comply with all of these. So these were the 4 reasons that the judge used as a basis to acquit and discharge my client. None of them is more important than the other, but basically these are the 4 reasons. So it was not only for the purposes of identifying that he was being sought for political reasons, but for the other 3 reasons that I raised up as well.
Okay, but was he, I mean, what I was asking is, did the primary charge actually come up? The charge that he had helped to loot Ivorian banks, did that question come up in the court at all?
It most certainly did. It most certainly did, and it failed. It failed woefully. I'll tell you why it failed. The Ivorian government submitted about close to over 40 witness statements. Okay, now the witness statements, much like you probably have in America, when an offense is committed, witnesses are questioned or they are deposed, or they either give a video testimony of what they saw, or they put it in writing. It's the same thing. It's a witness statement.
Okay.
Now, out of the about 30 to 40 witness statements that were supplied, okay, not a single one, bear in mind, not a single witness actually testified that he saw with his own eyes or his own perception Mr. Katinan being involved in any form of robbery. In fact, when I was cross-examining the police officer who was giving evidence on behalf of the state, I asked him to take all the statements and show to me which ones had Mr. Katinan's names mentioned. He was able to point about 3 of the statements. Then I said, in those statements, show me where it points to any issues of robbery. He said, my lord, there are no issues of robbery. And in fact, the judge in his judgment mentioned that issue. So there was absolutely no evidence submitted before the court in Ghana that Mr. Katinan had indeed committed any of the crimes, or even been in the presence of anybody committing such a crime.
All that. Okay, but how was the charge filed? Did the Ivorian government send a delegation to file the charges in court? How was it done?
Okay, briefly, when someone is being sought for extradition, the arrest warrant is issued. The request for extradition is made. By virtue of our Ghanaian laws, it will have to go through our Ministry of Interior, and then from the Ministry of Interior, it will go to the nearest district magistrate court within which the accused lives, and he will then subsequently be arrested on the orders of the magistrate court, and then produced before the magistrate court, where the procedure is that of what we call a committal. Therefore, the government that seeks the extradition will have to supply all the necessary evidence proving that indeed this offense was committed, and it was committed by the accused. The judge will then assess all of this, and then after that decide whether or not he will give the order for extradition based on what he has before him. Now, that is a normal procedure.
So there were no witnesses or any kind of prosecutor from the Ivory Coast at all?
Absolutely not. And this is an issue that I canvassed. I canvassed this issue, that if the Ivorian government wanted him so much, at the barest minimum, they could have sent witnesses, they could have sent police investigators. I mean, bear in mind, La Côte d'Ivoire is only about 5 hours away by car. So...
Okay. Hello, Mr. Katinan, are you there? Oh, sorry, Mr. Sogbodjor, are you there? Sorry. Hello? Viewers, we seem to have lost Mr. Sogbodjor. We'll try and raise him back as soon as we can. But so far, everything points to how the accused, Mr. Justin Kone Katinan, managed to escape being extradited back to the Côte d'Ivoire. Remember, viewers, that his boss, if I can call him that, Mr. Gbagbo, is currently before the Hague, and they're actually having a hard time trying to, actually indict him of any offense. Are you there, Mr. Sogbodjor? Okay. We're still trying to raise Mr. Sogbodjor on the line. And as I was saying, Mr. Laurent Gbagbo is also before the Hague at this point, and chances are he might have to be freed because there have actually not been any concrete evidence brought
Hello?
against him. Yes, Mr. Sogbodjor. Sorry we lost you.
Hello?
Welcome back. Yes, Mr.
Yes.
Sogbodjor.
Can you see me?
Not at the moment. I can hear you though, but
Right.
we'll try and go on, and then hopefully the technicians will raise your image. Yes, I can see you now. Thank you.
Right.
Okay. So my next question is, the Ivorian government accused the government of Ghana of harboring pro-Gbagbo loyalists who they
Yes.
think are trying to regroup to go back to the Ivory Coast to cause mayhem. Is this a valid accusation with your, your association with Mr. Katinan? Maybe you can help us to answer that question.
Well, I mean, to the best of my knowledge, I'm not aware that my client is involved in any anti-government, behavior with other pro-Gbagbo allies. And so, for me, I would answer in the negative. Also reminding that in any event, my remit was to defend him in a court of law. I mean,
Yeah.
as to what he does subsequently, really, it's not within my preview. But bearing in mind that this sort of thing happens all the time between sister African countries. I remember in the early 80s, the Adema government accused, the Ghanaian government of harboring, Togolese dissidents.
Yeah.
We ourselves, Ghana, also subsequently accused the Togolese of harboring, Ghanaian dissidents. So it's a back and forth battle where every current government has some assumption that a sister country is harboring its opponent. So it's something that is not new to African politics. So I mean, with that regard, one can either decide to pay a lot of regard to it or to dismiss it as what it is.
All right. Yeah, fair enough. Last October, Mr. Katinan was also brought before another court for the murder of 2 people during the Civil War. Did you represent Mr. Katinan in that case as well?
Yes, I did. I represented him in that case. In that case as well, he was also discharged and acquitted.
He was. Can you give us a brief summary of that case as well and how it all panned out?
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, right from the beginning, we knew we had this robbery and conspiracy to rob charges to fight. Whilst the case was yet to start, we made several applications for bail because he was remanded into police custody, and eventually the judge granted bail pending the completion of the robbery charges. Now he was granted bail on, I think, if my memory serves me right, it was a Friday at some point in time. Okay. Now, by Monday, he'd been rearrested again. This time, on murder charges, and was also sent to yet, another district court for murder charges. I mean, at that point in time, it was quite clear that, for whatever reason it was, the Ivorian authorities must have been displeased about the fact that my client got bail and, quickly trumped up, another set of charges. In any event, he was arraigned before that district court. He pleaded his innocence, and the same procedure ought to have happened. Again, the Ivorian authorities failed to provide the necessary evidence showing and warranting that indeed.
Hello, Mr. Sogbodjor. Hello. Okay, viewers, the link is still playing tricks with us, but we still want to try and raise Mr. Sogbodjor to finish this interview. Just a short background to the whole Ivorian conflict. In 2004, I think it is, the civil war broke out in La Côte d'Ivoire, and this war raged on for quite a while. In about 2008, the war came to an end with some kind of an agreement.
Yes.
When
Hello.
Gbagbo became, okay, we have Mr. Sogbodjor back on the line. Sorry, Mr.
Yeah.
Sogbodjor, the link is playing tricks with us, but we'll still try and go through with this.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so could you finish what you were saying?
So as I was saying, that in any event, similarly to Robbery, the authorities, the state wanted to have Mr. Katinan remanded in police custody. He was remanded in police custody for a number of times. The case suffered a lot of adjournments, and the Ivorian authorities and our prosecution authorities here were unable to provide the necessary evidence to substantiate the allegation of the crime, and the judge also found it very easy to dismiss the charges and acquit and discharge Mr. Katinan. So on the basis of that, that case was also dismissed. So in fact, I raised it up at the robbery trial that, look, it's quite evident that Mr. Katinan is being sought desperately by the Ivorian authorities because, I mean, you know, they brought a robbery charge. Halfway through that, they brought a murder charge. The murder charge has collapsed. And I mean, if you have two offenses, one of murder and one of robbery, I think in terms of gravity of offense, murder is the highest one. You know, they somehow abandoned the murder one. We're concentrating on the robbery one. So it was very easy to see that this was all some politically motivated action against the man.
Okay, you must be really elated by now having won such a high-profile case. How is your client feeling about this whole thing?
I mean, my client is very happy. He's very elated. It's been a whole year. I mean, can you imagine a whole year out of which I think 3 to 4 months were spent in incarceration. He himself is a refugee in a foreign country, so this is not like his home country. He finds himself in and out of jail. He spends a year going to court, you know, almost every other week. And so, I mean, he's emotionally tired, physically tired, but very happy and elated that the rule of law has worked in Ghana, and that, you know, we have systems in place that work. The law is respected, and you know, judges can make decisions without fear or favor. So he's very happy about that.
Okay, and you just mentioned a while ago that they keep, you know, bringing up charges against your client. Do you expect any more charges to be brought up?
Well, I mean, I will be surprised if any more charges are brought up. But then, I mean, it's up to the authorities in Ivory Coast. If they feel a crime has been committed and, you know, they have the necessary evidence to support it, I mean, why not? They should go ahead and then bring it. But I'll be very surprised that indeed such a situation will rise up again.
Okay. And finally, Mr. Sogbodjor, what do you think this would mean to international relations? I mean, you've already given us a starter on this issue about how the countries keep accusing each other of harboring dissidents and all of that. How do you think this is going to go for Ghana-Ivorian relations? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, Mr. Sogbodjor. I was asking how you think the victory that you've chalked for your client is going to mean. What implications are they going to have, or is it going to have for Ghana-Ivorian relations? And indeed, let me add this as well.
Yeah.
How is the wider international community, especially the West, going to view Ghana in the light of the victory that you just chalked for your client?
Right. Well, I mean, for me, I think that if the political powers of the politicians look at it with straight and honest eyes, I really shouldn't think that it should affect the relations. After all, the president of the La Côte d'Ivoire holds himself out as being a Democrat. And if, in the eyes of a Democrat, a court of competent standing and jurisdiction has investigated the matter, looked into it, and decided that, the charges shouldn't lie, really, then any true Democrat or any true honest person should take it as that and, concentrate on, the advantages and the synergies that the two countries can gain together.
All right.
Instead of fixating on on this issue. You know, so for me, that's how I see it.
Okay, the very final.
I shouldn't think that if people are honest, it should affect the relationship of both countries.
Okay, the very final and briefly, please, because we're fast out of time right now.
Okay.
It has been suggested, I've heard it being suggested that the government is not really interested in Ivorian dissidents being extradited back to the Ivory Coast. Did you get any support from the government of Ghana at all?
No, not at all. I mean, we didn't get any support from the government at all. Don't forget that our main adversary in the court was the Attorney General. So the Attorney General is the government's lawyer. So we were fighting the government's lawyer. So I can't say that we got any support from government. No.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Sogbodjor. We really appreciate your time with us on Sahara TV, and we're sure you open your doors to us again anytime we have the need.
And I'm most gracious to most gracious to your listeners as well, and I wish them and you well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sogbodjor. Viewers, that has been Mr. Patrick Sogbodjor, counsel for Mr. Justin Kone Katinan, former budget minister of Gbagbo, who is actually before The Hague, and Mr. Katinan has also just been freed from a Ghanaian court on charges of masterminding the raiding of Ivorian banks. Please stay with us. We're right back with more.